My 3-year revenge plan on my cheating wife left her broken and powerless. I never thought my life would turn into one of those stories you read on Reddit. Wife cheats, husband finds out, revenge ensues. But here I am. Writing this all down feels surreal, but I guess I just need to get it out of my system. My name is Chris Harrington, 42 years old. I used to be the guy who believed in marriage, loyalty, and all that fairy tale nonsense. Turns out, my wife, Martha, 39, had a different view on commitment. We had been married for 15 years, and for most of it, I thought we were solid. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that seemed like a deal-breaker. I run a successful engineering firm, worked hard to provide for our family, and never once questioned Martha's love. That was my mistake. It started with little things. Martha suddenly being obsessed with her appearance, late nights at work, and that gut feeling that something was off. But I trusted her. I wanted to trust her. Then, 3 years ago, I found out the truth. Martha was having an affair. Not just any affair, a long-term, emotional, and physical relationship with some younger hotshot at her office, Michael Kinsley. He was in his late 20s, flashy, confident, the kind of guy who thought he was invincible. Apparently, so did Martha. I didn't find out by accident. I wasn't one of those clueless husbands who stumbled upon texts or caught them in the act. No, I hired a private investigator. I wanted the truth, all of it, in black and white. And I got it. Pictures, videos, receipts from expensive dinners I unknowingly paid for. Weekend getaways when she told me she was visiting her sister. The PI even caught them making out in a parking lot like a couple of teenagers. That's when I realized something. Confronting her right away would be pointless. She'd deny it, cry, manipulate, play the victim. No, I needed to be smarter. So, I waited. For 3 years, I played the role of the oblivious husband while secretly preparing for my revenge. I moved assets, sold my company under a separate trust, and made sure she wouldn't get a dime more than she deserved. I even played the loving husband, took her on trips, bought her gifts, let her feel comfortable. The best part? She had no clue what was coming. Then, on a random Tuesday morning, everything changed. Martha was in a high-stakes meeting at work, surrounded by colleagues, bosses, even Michael himself. That's when she was served. Divorce papers. Right there, in front of everyone. She went pale. The office erupted into whispers. And Michael? He looked like he wanted to disappear. Martha tried to call me, probably to fake some shocked, innocent act, but I ignored it. Let her sit in it. That was just the beginning. Martha came home that evening looking like she had seen a ghost. She stormed through the front door, slamming it so hard that the picture frames on the wall rattled. Her face was flushed, her makeup was smeared, and for the first time in years, she looked genuinely terrified. "Chris, what the hell is this?" she hissed, waving the divorce papers in her hand. "You served me at work? In the middle of a meeting?" I barely looked up from my drink. "Yeah," I said, taking a slow sip of my whiskey. Seemed like a fitting place. She blinked, thrown off by my calmness. I could see her trying to shift gears, deciding whether to play the angry wife or the hurt victim. "You blindsided me," she shrieked. "You didn't even talk to me about this. You just—" I cut her off with a chuckle. "Oh, Martha," I said, shaking my head. "I've known about Michael for 3 years." The blood drained from her face. It was like watching someone realize the walls were closing in, that the game was over, that the chessboard had been flipped and she was checkmated. "What?" she whispered. I leaned forward, setting my glass down on the table. "I know everything, Martha. The weekend getaways, the late-night meetups, the money you spent on your little boy toy." "That's not true," she snapped, but her voice cracked. I smirked. "It's funny. You always were a terrible liar, but you never realized it." I stood up, grabbed a thick folder from the shelf, and tossed it onto the table between us. She hesitated before opening it, but when she did, her whole body went rigid. There it was. Every single piece of evidence. Pictures of her and Michael together, time-stamped. Credit card statements. hotel receipts, even text messages. I had them all. Her hands started shaking. Chris, I cut her off again. Save it. I don't care why you did it. I don't care about your excuses. I just wanted to see your face when you realized you lost. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she had convinced herself that I'd roll over, beg, fight for her. But that wasn't happening. Okay, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Okay. We can figure this out. We don't have to rush into anything. Let's just... I laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Martha, you really think there's anything left to talk about? You're done. The house? Mine. The savings? Mine. My company? Sold under a private trust. You won't see a penny. I made sure of that. Now she was shaking her head, her breaths coming quicker. No, that's not possible. We built this life together. You can't just take everything. You didn't build anything, I said, my voice cold. I built this. You were just along for the ride. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel a thing. Chris, please, she whispered. We have so much history. You can't just erase that. I tilted my head. Funny. That's exactly what you did when you crawled into bed with him. She broke then. The tears, the shaking, the full-blown panic. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I stepped closer, dropping my voice. You think this is bad? This is just the start, sweetheart. Martha stood there, staring at me like I had just ripped the floor out from under her. And in a way I had. 4 years, she lived in a comfortable little world where she could have her fun with Michael and come home to a stable life I provided. She never thought I'd find out. Never thought I'd have the spine to fight back. Well, she was wrong. She sucked in a shaky breath and wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. Chris, please. I know you're angry, but we can talk about this. I raised an eyebrow. Talk about what, exactly? She hesitated. About what went wrong. Why I cut her off with a sharp laugh. Oh, you want to talk about why you cheated? Because I wasn't romantic enough? Because I worked too much? Because I didn't understand you? I took a step closer. Tell me, Martha, was Michael understanding you in those hotel rooms? She flinched. That one hit hard. I walked over to the kitchen counter, grabbed another whiskey, and took my time with my next words. Let me guess. You thought I'd get mad, yell, maybe even fight for you? That we'd go to therapy, and you'd get to cry about how conflicted you were. I turned to face her. You don't get that luxury. Not after what you did. She swallowed hard. But we were happy, Chris. You know we were. I shrugged. Maybe. But happy wives don't cheat. And you did. For a moment, she didn't say anything. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out an angle, a way to spin this. Then she straightened her back, and her face hardened. You're being cruel, she said, her voice low. Am I? I smirked. No, Martha. Cruel would have been exposing you in front of your entire family. Cruel would have been sending those photos to your parents, your friends, your co-workers. I let that sink in before adding, which, by the way, I haven't ruled out yet. She gasped. You wouldn't. I leaned in just slightly. Try me. Silence. She knew I meant it. After a few seconds, she let out a shaky breath and sat down on the couch, gripping the divorce papers in her lap. What exactly do you want? She asked, barely above a whisper. I smiled. Oh, don't worry. I already have what I want. And that's when I dropped the bombshell. The house, already legally transferred to me. The assets, you won't get a penny more than what the courts require me to give you. I took another sip of my drink. And your precious reputation? Well, let's just say that might take a hit, too. Her breathing grew shallow. Chris, you can't do this to me. I tilted my head. I can. And I am. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but I felt nothing. No pity. No remorse. She was starting to realize it. The truth. There was no escaping this. The silence between us stretched. I could see it in her eyes, the moment she truly understood that this wasn't just a fight. This wasn't something she could fix with a few tears and empty promises. She was trapped. Then, like clockwork, she switched tactics. Her face softened, and her voice took on that gentle, pleading tone she always used when she wanted something from me. Chris, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away before she could touch me. But 15 years, Chris. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I laughed under my breath. 15 years meant everything to me, Martha. That's why I never cheated. Never lied. Never disrespected our marriage. I leaned back, shaking my head. But it obviously didn't mean much to you. She sniffled, dabbing at her eyes. I was stupid. I let things get out of hand. But I never stopped loving you. That set me off. I let out a bitter laugh and stood up, pacing the room. You never stopped loving me? I echoed. Martha, you were sleeping with another man. For 3 years. I turned to face her, my anger finally showing. Do you have any idea how much effort it takes to hide an affair for that long? How many lies you have to tell? That's not a mistake. That's a choice, over and over again. She stayed quiet, looking down. I scoffed. So tell me, when you were in bed with him, did you love me then? She let out a choked sob. It wasn't like that. Oh, wasn't it? I snapped. Then what was it, Martha? Tell me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like you threw our marriage in the trash for some office fling. She shook her head violently. No, Chris, it wasn't like that. He made me feel, I don't know, wanted again. Like I was exciting. Like... I cut her off with a cold smile. Oh, so I didn't make you feel wanted enough? She hesitated. I didn't mean... I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Martha, I worked my ass off for us. For this life. For you. And while I was doing that, while I was making sure you never had to worry about anything, you were off feeling exciting with your little boy toy. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, realizing there was no argument to make. I let the moment stretch, let her sit in the mess she created. Then, just when she thought things couldn't get worse, I dropped another bomb. Oh, by the way, I said, walking back to my chair. I told your parents. Her head snapped up. You what? I shrugged. Called them this morning. Figured they should know what kind of daughter they raised. She shot up from the couch, panic in her eyes. Chris, no, please, tell me you didn't. I smirked. I did. Her breathing turned erratic. What did they say? I shrugged again, enjoying the way she was unraveling. Your mom cried. Your dad didn't say much. Just kind of sighed, like he wasn't even surprised. She swayed on her feet, like I had physically struck her. Good. Let her feel a fraction of the pain she put me through. Chris, she whispered, stepping toward me. Please. I held up a hand. Save it, Martha. We're done talking. She let out a sob, but I didn't care. This was only the beginning. Martha stood there, frozen, her breath coming in short gasps. She looked like she was about to pass out. Chris, she croaked, her voice barely above a whisper. You didn't have to do that. I gave her a cold smile. Didn't I? She covered her mouth with her hand, shaking her head in disbelief. My dad, my mom, you know how much they... Yeah, I cut in. I do know. That's why I told them. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, trying to salvage the situation. Maybe she thought she could still spin this, tell her parents some sob story about how I emotionally neglected her or how I drove her into Michael's arms. But deep down, I think she knew. There was no talking her way out of this. Her voice cracked. "Chris, I know you want to punish me, but—" I let out a sharp laugh. "Punish you? No, Martha. I'm just making sure you feel even a fraction of the humiliation you put me through." I walked toward her, slow and deliberate. "You cheated on me for 3 years, Martha. 3 years. And you had the nerve to act like everything was fine, to come home and smile in my face." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was—" "What?" I snapped. "Going to tell me eventually. Going to end it, but just hadn't yet." I scoffed. "Save it. I don't care." She wiped her face, frustration seeping through her panic. "Fine. Fine. Chris. You win. You got your revenge. You humiliated me at work, you told my parents, you're taking everything in the divorce. What more do you want from me?" I tilted my head. "Oh, Martha." I let the silence hang for a moment. "You don't even know the half of it." Her brows furrowed. "What does that mean?" I smirked. "You'll see." I watched her expression shift from anger to fear. And then, for the first time since this whole thing started, I saw real, genuine dread settle in her eyes. Because she knew. She had no control anymore. I sat back down, stretching out like I didn't have a care in the world. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some calls to make." Her voice shook. "To who?" I gave her a lazy smile. "Oh, just a few people who might find this whole situation very interesting." She took a step back, like she had just realized she was standing in quicksand. "Chris, please." I picked up my phone, scrolling casually. "Don't worry. I'll let you know who picks up." And with that, I dialed. Martha watched in horror as her world continued to crumble around her. Martha stood frozen, her face pale as I lifted my phone to my ear. She didn't know who I was calling, and that was the best part. Her boss? Her friends? Michael's wife? Yeah, she never thought I'd find out about that, did she? Her hands were clenched into fists, her whole body trembling. "Chris, please," she begged. "We can talk about this." I smirked. "Now you want to talk? Too bad. I really want to see how this plays out." She lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone out of my hand. I dodged easily. I said, wagging a finger at her. "You don't get to control the narrative anymore." Her breathing was erratic. Who are you calling?" I didn't answer. I just turned away and let the call ring. "Hello." A woman's voice. Tired, confused. "Hi, Rebecca," I said smoothly. "This is Chris Harrington. We've never met, but I think we need to talk." I watched as Martha's eyes widened in pure terror. She actually stumbled back, like she'd been physically hit. "Rebecca Kinsley. Michael's wife." "Chris," Rebecca repeated, sounding wary. I think I know who you are. Martha's husband." "That's me," I said, my voice calm and measured. "I just wanted to reach out because, well, I recently discovered something about your husband and my wife. And I have a feeling you deserve to know." Martha collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. There was silence on the other end. Then, a slow, measured breath. "Go on," Rebecca said, her tone now deadly serious. So I did. I told her everything. The affair. The hotel meetups. The work trips that were actually secret vacations. The money that had mysteriously disappeared from our accounts. Every detail. And to make sure there was no doubt, I offered to send her the proof. Martha sobbed silently, her body shaking, her fingers gripping her hair. Rebecca didn't say much. Just small, clipped responses. "I see. Is that so? Interesting." Then, finally, "Send me everything." I smiled. Of course. When I hung up, the silence in the room was deafening. Martha looked up at me with tear-streaked cheeks. "Chris," she choked out, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't understand what you've just done." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I think I do." She shook her head, panic setting in. "Michael, he told me Rebecca can't find out. He promised me he'd handle everything. If she finds out—" She trailed off, gripping the couch cushion like it was a life raft. I smirked. "Well, sweetheart, I guess we're about to find out how Michael handles things." Her face crumpled. She knew. Michael's life was about to implode, and so was hers. Martha sat there, her face pale, her breathing shaky. I could see the sheer panic in her eyes, like a trapped animal that finally realized there was no way out. "Chris," she whispered, "please, you don't know what you've just done." I leaned against the counter, sipping my drink. "Oh, I know exactly what I did. I just put a bomb in Michael's perfect little life and lit the fuse. Now we get to watch it blow up." Martha shook her head violently, gripping her temples. "You don't get it. Michael, he swore to me that Rebecca couldn't find out. He said if she ever did." She trailed off, her breath hitching. I raised an eyebrow. "What, Martha? What exactly was Michael going to do? Leave you? Run away? Tell me, did you two have some grand plan? Were you waiting for the perfect moment to finally ditch me and be together?" She let out a choked sob. No, it wasn't like that. I never planned to leave you." I scoffed. "Oh, so you just wanted both of us? How thoughtful." Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. She jumped, staring at it like it might explode. The screen lit up. "Michael." I grinned. Well. Looks like he got the news." Martha hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. Then, without a word, she got up and sprinted toward the hallway. Oh, hell no. I was faster. I stepped in front of her before she could lock herself away. "Where are you going?" "Chris, please," she whispered. I need to talk to him." I crossed my arms. "Put it on speaker." Her mouth opened and closed, like she wanted to argue but knew it was pointless. With trembling hands, she answered the call and hit speaker. Immediately, Michael's panicked voice filled the room. "Martha, what the hell is going on? Rebecca just threw all my stuff out of the house. She's got pictures, she's got receipts." Martha let out a small, broken noise. Michael wasn't listening. I told you she couldn't find out. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I smirked, enjoying every second. Martha sniffled. "Michael, I didn't tell her. Chris, he found out everything. He's been planning this for years." Silence. Then Michael spoke again, but his voice had changed. Lower. Colder. "You told me you could handle it." Martha flinched. I thought I could, but you told me you had him wrapped around your finger." I let out a laugh. "Yeah, Martha, what happened to that?" Michael heard me. "Is that him?" I grabbed the phone from Martha's hand before she could react. "Hey there, Mike. You sound stressed. Not having a good day. You son of a—" I hung up. Martha gasped. "Chris, why would you—" I tossed the phone onto the couch. No need to hear any more of his whining. I already know how this ends. Martha's hands were shaking. "Chris, you don't understand. Michael, he's not like you. He won't just let this go." I rolled my eyes. "Oh, what's he gonna do? Come over here and fight me? Try to win you back?" I smirked. "Because that, I'd love to see." She swallowed hard, her whole body trembling. "No, Chris. You don't get it. If Rebecca divorces him, he loses everything." I shrugged. Not my problem. Her lip quivered. Chris, please. I'm scared. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I smiled. Good. Martha was unraveling. Her hands were shaking, her breathing was all over the place, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not fear of losing me. Not fear of the divorce. No, this was different. This was pure, unfiltered terror. And I wanted to know why. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. All right, Martha. What exactly are you so scared of? She swallowed hard, her eyes darting toward her phone like she expected it to ring again. When she didn't answer, I pressed. Michael losing everything. That was the risk he took when he started sleeping with another man's wife. So what? He'll cry about it, lose some money, maybe get fired. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Martha's bottom lip trembled. Chris, you don't understand. I narrowed my eyes. Then explain it to me. She hesitated. Then her phone buzzed again. Martha jumped like she had been electrocuted. I didn't even need to look. I already knew who it was. Michael. I picked up her phone, glanced at the screen, and read the text out loud. Get rid of him. Now. I let out a low whistle. Well, that doesn't sound friendly. Martha made a strangled sound and tried to grab the phone from me, but I held it away. Oh no, sweetheart. We're in this together now. So start talking. Her voice came out in a desperate whisper. Chris, please, I can fix this, I grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at me. Fix what, Martha? I said, my voice dangerously calm. What exactly is Michael expecting you to do? She blinked rapidly, fresh tears spilling over. I shook my head. You're not answering. That means it's something really bad. She clenched her fists. Michael he's not just some guy, Chris. He knows people. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what does that mean? She squeezed her eyes shut. It means he's not going to just sit back and let you ruin his life. I let out a sharp laugh. I didn't ruin his life, Martha. You did. He chose to screw a married woman, and now he's facing the consequences. Her breath hitched. Chris, he told me before that if Rebecca ever found out, it would mean the end of everything for him. His career, his reputation, his finances, everything. She broke off, looking sick. He said if he ever lost everything because of me, he'd make sure I lost everything too. I felt a flicker of something new. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Something colder. Martha's words finally clicked. Michael wasn't just some office playboy. He was a man on the edge. And now that he had nothing left to lose, that made him dangerous. I exhaled slowly. So let me get this straight. You had an affair with a guy who literally warned you that if things went south, he'd take you down with him. I let out a low chuckle. Wow, Martha. You really know how to pick him. She let out a sob. Chris, please. We have to stop this before it's too late. I tilted my head. We. She nodded frantically. Yes. You've made your point. You've hurt me, you've taken everything, you won. But if we don't stop this now, Michael, he might. She didn't finish. Because we both knew exactly what she meant. Michael might come after me. Or her. Or both of us. I smirked. Well, sweetheart. I guess we'll see just how far he's willing to go. And I meant it. Because I wasn't done yet.